in case to see if we are on, because I don't trust YouTube because it's Google and they always say you're on and then you are not. So checking. Yes, black screen. Yes, we're on. Hello, everybody. Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, depending on the time zone you're in. As you can see, I'm an idiot. I didn't remember about daylight savings, so times in Europe didn't change, but they changed a bit in the US. Sorry about that, Mitch. As always, see what we are both wearing. See, the mask. So let me say it in my usual polite and fine way. Microphone, yes. Wear your fucking mask. Let me say it again. Wear your fucking mask. And now I'll explain it. It's not about you. The mask doesn't protect you. It protects others from you. Just, you have to know this. And if you don't use the mask, your people is going to die. People can die. And not only that, if maybe not die, but have chronic illnesses that are really, really bad in their lungs and other parts of their body, it's not a joke. So please, wear your mask. Be civil, respectful.
Don't do this nonsense either.
What?
I said, don't do this nonsense either, where you pull it down.
Exactly. Yeah. This. No, doesn't work. No. So, me getting off. Just repeating for the last time. Wear your mask. It's about your elders. It's about your children. It's about the kids. It's about everybody. Everybody can get the contagion. And if they tell you it doesn't affect, that's a lie. It affects everybody. And you can cause their death. And last but not least, if you think you're immortal, you're Superman, or even worse, you don't care about anybody else's safety and their healthcare, leave this fucking channel now. I don't want you here. And that's not a joke. After that, fine way of saying things that I always have. Hello, Mitch, my friend. How are you?
Hello. Good. Thanks for having me.
Thank you for being here. I'm sorry again about the fuck up with the time difference.
No worries. It's not like I'm going to leave my house.
How's things in your neck of the woods? Are they improved at all? It's still crazy? How's things?
I mean, it depends in which facet. Politically, not great.
Okay.
The weather today is fantastic. We have it's like 60 and sunny. Usually yesterday it was almost 100 and sunny, so it's a nice change of pace.
Nice. And imagine I'm going to change my name now. I'm not David Macho anymore. My name is Dr. Victor Frankenstein. So now this is it's a rotring pen. So I'm just shoot. That's you. I just shot you with you're cured. There's no pandemic. There's just say you can leave and do whatever the fuck you want right now. What's the first thing you could do that you've been dying to do for months that you cannot do?
I want to eat inside a restaurant. I want to sit at a bar, order a few drinks.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I miss that.
Do you miss conventions at all?
I do. For a long time, I didn't, just because I did so many that, you get a little burnt out, and deadlines were really hard and all these things. But just recently, like maybe like a month ago, it really started to hit me how much, because I'll be honest, I don't have a lot of friends that I meet here.
Mm-hmm.
All my friends are industry friends and people that I hang out with. So conventions were my way of socializing, being around people and enjoying my friends. And I haven't gotten to see, Tom, who's my best friend, in almost a year now. So
that's true, because you're not even close. So it's gonna be very difficult.
Opposite sides of the country.
Yeah, that was what I was gonna say, because when I ask people about the conventions, I think we all get to the same conclusion. It's not that we miss the conventions per se, the signing and all.
Yeah.
But you miss is seeing your friends, hanging out, sitting down with your best friends. But suddenly, as I was talking to you to check-in, it's like you see that guy in that dinner that you didn't know who was going to be there. You haven't seen in 3 years, and you start talking like it was yesterday. And then that's what you get home. That moment when you saw an industry friend that you hadn't seen in years. Is that the same for you?
Yeah, absolutely. And even, besides that, it's any social interaction. It's amazing meeting fans and nerding out. And obviously my work hasn't changed a lot. I mean, I'm still gotten the same deadlines, and I've been going like crazy. But like that whole thing of nerding out, I miss. Like I haven't gotten to nerd out. It's been work, which is fun, but like that whole like reason that we all work in comics is that we love comics and we want to talk about comics.
Yeah.
I haven't gotten that in a while.
As I always say, kids, don't get into comics to to get rich. That's not the point. You get into comics because you love comics.
Yes.
Do you remember the last movie you went to the theater to watch before this happened?
Oh boy. It's probably super embarrassing because I wasn't going to the theater a lot simply because of my son. So we didn't get there a lot. But last movie. Jeez. I honestly do not remember.
I'm asking you because it's happening to a lot of people that even if they watch the last movie in a theater in March, it's flipping. We're flipping out because nobody remembers.
Yeah.
It's like we are in the other side of a black hole or a wormhole, whatever you want to call it.
Yep.
And suddenly people goes blank and they're like, shit, how can't I remember? It was March. Like, because there's so many things that happened since then that we are in like another space. And Shaking was the clever one because he asked me back, what about you? And I realized I didn't remember either. So
honestly, it might be Avengers Endgame. I'm not even joking.
It could be. Do you and Lauren do what Paloma and I do, which is taking turns to go to the theater? Like, okay, who's going this week? Because one of us has to stay with Erin, of course. One of you has to stay with Wes. So it's like, who's going? Toss a coin.
Kind of. So what we would do is she would go to movies with her friends, and I would stay home with Wes. And then the trade-off is then that I go to conventions for a weekend. So
it worked.
Yeah.
In our case, is who's going with Erin to watch a kids movie, then the other goes, to see their movie. So I had to suffer through a Scoop, which is amazing because of the characters. Because I love the characters from but the movie is so bad, so bad. Hey, have you realized if you? Because I have two answers to this question. Have you overworked? Do you realize by the end of the day that you're working more work, or the other way around, which is it's more difficult for you to work?
The thing is, I overwork myself, pandemic or not. So work hasn't changed too much for me. I'm pretty addicted to work. Like I enjoy it, and it actually like calms me down. And even at my most like where I'm completely burnt out, I find that like if I take a day off, I spend that day just stressing out about not working.
We call that workaholic.
Yeah. But I do balance it. So like the first half of a deadline, say a deadline is like 5 weeks. 4 to 5 weeks. The first half of a deadline, I'll work all day, and then at like 5 p.m. when my son comes home, I'll stop work, and then usually that first half of the deadline, the first 2 weeks, I'll take the rest of the night off, and Lauren and I will watch a movie or a show or something. And then the last 2 weeks of the deadline, it's work all day. He comes home, we'll have dinner. I'll go back to work and work till midnight again and repeat.
Yeah, repeat. If I ask you why comics, let me explain. You have a lot of choices. You started as a graphic designer, as I know, but then imagine I put you in front of you. You could have gone to illustration or movie storyboarding, animation, etc. What made you say comics? This is what I want to do. This is my life. Aside of the fact of having read comics since they were kids, which I guess is a big part of it.
Yeah, I think there's probably two answers. Like the first answer is superheroes. It's hero worship from when I was a kid. Like I looked up to them because they were these paragons of good, and like you just have that thing in you when you're a kid, when you see Batman, you see Superman, like you just want to be that larger than life thing that like helps people.
Mm-hmm.
And then the second thing is just the craft of it, like the immense potential for telling stories. And it's a way for me, because I knew from a very young age that I wanted to be a storyteller.
Mm-hmm.
And the amazing thing about comics is that, unlike movies or animation or anything, where you're just kind of one of many cogs in the wheel that makes the final product, with comics, you get to, you still have a team, but it's a very small team, a very like compartmentalized team. Like there's a person doing the art and the letters and the writing, and you get to tell that story more and make it your own in
Mm-hmm.
comics.
Mm-hmm. Do you consider yourself the conductor of the orchestra, the one of the musicians, or how do you see it from your side?
Um, I I do see comics in film terms,
Mm-hmm.
where the writer is the writer is the script writer, and the artist is the everything else.
Yeah,
Director, designer, costumer. Yeah.
that's why I always say that. I don't know if you agree, but and I don't know if you or Tom have discussed it, but I always say that when the level of collaboration is as close as yours and Tom's is, in terms of friendship in a way, inside of course, but as professionals too, you are not two people, you become a third person.
Yeah.
You are
I
like
agree
that
completely.
synergy makes that what there's no start or ending between what you
Yeah.
guys do. It becomes something else. So
Yeah.
that's when I say it shouldn't be credited as writer artist. It should be credited storytellers,
Yeah. I agree.
because there's it happens to you that even before you finish reading a phrase or a paragraph or a page description, you know
Yeah.
what he's taking you,
Oh yeah. Yeah.
even before you know what you're going to have to draw.
Yep. And I influence the writing just as much as he influences the art. So
Yeah, that's the other part of it. Since we were talking about the third entity, is Tom writes for you, of course, but how many times do you get to surprise him?
yeah, I mean, it happens, but like at the same time, when I get a Tom script, I see it like that. And when I turn it in, I think he's more, if he's surprised, it's more of like the rendering of it rather
Mhm,
than like, because he already knows, oh, if I write this, I know what Mitch will do.
mhm,
And
mhm.
so there's not a ton of surprises that way, just as much of like, I mean, I'm more surprised when I read a script because I don't know what's going to happen until I read the script, and then we can alter it and mold it from there. But yeah,
What's when you get one script, be it from Tom or anybody else? What's the first thing instinctively that you go for? You look for the emotional parts or the structure?
yeah, the emotional parts. One of the fun things that I actually like, and a lot of artists would probably tell you the opposite, but working with Tom is that we always work within these defined panel structures. So, like, obviously, Mr. Miracle was the 9 panels every time, and then if we broke it, there was a story reason. And even on Strange Adventures, it's a 3 panel grid, like Darwin Cook's New Frontier, but we're allowed to break it. We're not as strict as we were with Mr. Miracle.
Mhm.
But I know that if Tom writes me 3 panels, I'm always going to lay it out as 3 horizontal panels.
Yeah.
And so I don't have to worry about any sort of reader interpretation of moment to moment. I That's already built in. So like I don't I don't have to focus on that, and I think it's like wildly freeing. And it's more like, it's almost like storyboarding a movie
Mhm.
where I get to play with time more than if you're doing random panels. Because if you're doing random panels, the reader doesn't know exactly how much time passes from one panel to the next. Whereas if it's structured, you can see the exact amount of time and you can slow it down or speed it up.
Mm-hmm. That's the part. That's the part that I wanted to get to next. The uniqueness of the comics language, which is, I don't know if you watch any of my videos, but I repeat it all the time. I repeat it in every show, and some people hates me and some people love me because I say it. But I can affirm, and I'm pretty sure you'll agree, comics is the only art form that can defy Einstein's theory of relativity. Because you guys, from the first corner of the first panel to the last one, you control time and space like this. No other art form can do that. And it's not only because of the typical example I always say about Watchmen. Issue 1, you see Laurie in the background in a panel, no important, nobody cares. And then on issue 5, she's in the foreground, and you realize, shit, it's this 5 issues later, we're at the same time. And just start wondering and going back and start realizing how much Alan and Dave, we discussed this in Barcelona, if you remember, have been playing with you at all times. And then it's that issue is when you start to realize and go back saying, oh, wait, what I thought it was linear hasn't been linear at all for 5 fucking issues. So that's what and also because of the panel shapes, as you said, panel shapes tell you, and the tire structure can tell you how much, how slow, how fast you can go. Do you agree with my crazy assessment, or what do you think?
I do. That's actually pretty apt. I like that.
How much do you like to play with that? I mean, we said emotional is the important part for you, but of course in your work it's very obvious that you also both Tom and yourself, and you're on your own stuff without Tom, just like to work with that. How important you think it is for the comics language to use that to your advantage, since we know movies and others really do it?
It's hugely important. I mean, look at Mr. Miracle, where there's so many pages where all I did was change a facial expression a little bit through 9 panels, or moved him from this to this within 3 panels, actually linearly walking.
Mm-hmm.
It's like really fun to get into that side of storytelling, whereas like, I don't know, it's a whole philosophical thing about how artists approach comics these days. And there's some that just want to make really pretty pictures, and then I think there's some that really want to like tell the story and work with the art form.
But I'm realizing that species of artists, the one who draws pretty pictures, is in extinction. More and more, I keep talking to the young generation, to you guys, etc. And we go back to what I had John Romita Jr. a couple of weeks ago.
Mm-hmm.
And he literally told me, look, the first thing I realized is I was never going to be as good as my father. So the second thing I realized is I gotta be the best storyteller in the business. That's a matter of opinion if he is or not. I agree with him. I think he is. But that point on is telling me comic artists are here because you guys want to tell stories, right? So in a way, for you, what makes you come back to comics, even with all of the other options you have, is that the urge, as you said, workaholic or whatever, is the urge to tell stories.
I think I don't know. I always have a problem with, and I'm not going to name names or anything, but like,
no, we don't need it.
No. But I know for a fact of a lot of artists that are either they're so jaded at this point in their career, but there's a lot of artists who are just trying to sell their pages, and that's their goal.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't know, I get all artsy fartsy about comics. I get all up in the clouds with thinking about comics, and that's what excites me. And I think the older I get, the more I realize that being excited by stuff is way more important.
Absolutely. And also, there's something I always say, that if you try to trick a reader with bad storytelling, they know a lot more than we do. They've been reading for all their fucking lives. So they automatically recognize when something doesn't work. There's another part that I always mention. As you see, I mix a lot. arts and sciences, because I think comics is a science in many ways. And the schools were called arts and sciences, for a reason in the old days.
Mm-hmm.
But I always say, many times people overload pages with information and they don't realize, since we were fucking cavemen, there's something called pattern recognition.
Yeah.
That bush is rustling. Shit, there's a tiger there. He's gonna kill me.
Yeah.
So for you as a storyteller, how much do you think you have to contain yourself to say, I don't need to feel that, because my reader is going to know how to finish it, and it's going to be a lot more fulfilling for him as a reader.
Yeah, no, that's I think a huge part of how I approach my pages. Hold on, my cat is going crazy. Jeez. But yeah, I mean, I think a lot of it is I come from a graphic design background, and one of the absolute main principles you're taught in that in that art form is how a person interprets a visual.
Mm-hmm.
And so there's a lot to be said about using open space and what that means, and cluttering something up and what that means, and the psychology of how all that's interpreted is definitely something I think about when I do any scene.
And there's also, as I always call it, the comic reader superpower, which is, first thing we learn is to read between the panels.
Yeah.
Superman,
yep, exactly.
and he's flying. We don't cover. We need to cover. It's there. So many times to young artists, I tell them, the important thing, as Scott McCloud would say, is what happens between the panels. Let the reader complete. Don't give him the full thing, the full information. And when I mean the superhero, the reader superpowers, that gives us, I think, and I bet you will agree, when we read the newspaper, we watch the news, automatically, since we are taught from the start to read between the panels, we always read between the lines. We never take anything for granted. Comic reader always is like, what's behind that?
Yep.
Do you agree on that?
Oh, for sure. And I think a huge part of why I like working with Tom so much is that I believe he treats the writer, or the writer, I believe he treats the reader smarter than a lot of writers.
Yeah, I agree.
I think he goes into a script assuming his readers are already of a level of intelligence where he doesn't need to lay it all out for them.
Mm-hmm.
And I find that super interesting and super refreshing.
Yes.
Because there's nothing worse than reading a comic where they just explain everything.
Yeah.
It's bogged down.
Yeah, that's the word I was going to use about your your work together. It's refreshing. Just because of that, I hate it when a comic talks down to the reader. Literally hate it. The moment I see that on page 2, I just throw it away.
Yeah.
And not because of me. I don't give a shit if I don't like the word, but it's like whatever. But I hate it for thinking about the readers. It's like, guys, they know what they know. You have to consider that. Stop over-explaining. Let them fill the gaps. Let them go further, because the other side of what I was saying before is you have the reader. You are a manipulator of time and space, as we said. But there's also a weird thing that I want to ask you to see if you agree, which at the same time, we need the collaboration of the reader much more than any other media does.
Oh,
we need them to get into it and say, you know what?
The reader is an active participant.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes. That's what I wanted to ask you about. This, you get to the page turn, is if you haven't lured the reader there, he's not going to move on, and we want them to move on. So, how important do you think it is, as you said, to let the reader fill in the gaps?
I mean,
go please.
I feel like that might be the most important part of comics, or any reading a book even. Mm-hmm. The entire purpose of comics is to make the reader want to turn the page.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
You want to make the reader want to buy the next issue. There's nothing worse than when you finish a comic and you're like, guess I'll read the next one next month. You want to be like, where is it?
Yeah, I agree. What you want is that he finishes the issue saying, going Google, it's like, when is the next one? Then when is the next one? And that happens with you guys a lot. It's really difficult. I think it's one of the most difficult things to tell a reader this is going to be a finite amount of issues. Because most readers are going to think, I'm so used to my ongoings or my 4-issue miniseries, whatever, then telling me it's 12. But you keep coming them back and asking for more. In
the
Tom's
12-issue series is
it's like a trifecta already, because of course it's Vision too, which Walter did, and then Mr. Miracle, and this with you. So it's like
and Sheriff,
yeah, of course, and it's like his format.
Yep.
But in your case, does it constrain you at all, or gives you the freedom to say, I have a finite story to tell, so I'm free to tell it my way?
Yes, I absolutely love it, and if I have my way, that's what I'll do till the end of time. The next thing we're planning is another 12-issue thing. But I was just chatting with Evan and Tom the other day about this. Like, readers have, and I mean this with like the utmost respect to the reader, because we've been trained a certain way from the way comics have been made since whenever. But you're used to the ongoing series where you kind of have to condense everything into arcs, into 2-issue arcs, 4-issue arcs, whatever, to keep the reader excited and enticed. And with the 12-issue series, it's kind of the same way. You have to keep them enticed and all that. But just like a movie, you don't give away your plot halfway through.
Mm-hmm.
So like if we're building a mystery, kind of like what Strange Adventures is, the big climax, it's not going to happen until 10, 11, 12.
Yeah, absolutely.
And so a lot of we would get reviews on issue, we got them on issue 1 too, but like on issue 2, issue 3, where they're just like, oh man, we're 3 issues in and they still haven't told us what happened to this and that. I'm like, no, we're not going to.
Of course, and it's I guess right now, I guess it doesn't frustrate you anymore because you're used to it. But at the beginning, it could be frustrating. Like, you guys know it's 12 issues. How can you be expecting the answer in issue 3?
Yeah. But I just love playing in that field where I know that Tom and I can stretch something out or condense it or do a big twist. Like even Mr. Miracle, the first 6 were kind of presented in one way. And then once Jacob is born in 7 through 12 is like not a whole new story, but it's like a whole new avenue of the first story.
Mm-hmm.
And so you get to play with that big, like, what are they like in TV terms, like the mid-season finale.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. But how much? 2 ways. What is more important for you in those 12 issues? The journey or the destination?
The journey, 100%.
And that takes me to my second one. How much did you change things from the original plan? Like, okay, we have a story. It starts here, it ends here. I guess that the beginning and end maybe don't change, but all the parts in between, how much is it flowing?
I mean, I think little details change, and then sometimes the very ending will change a couple times, like keep me in the loop and be like, oh wait, no, now that we'll do this. Especially because like the way Tom and I work and now the way that Evan works with us is that we sometimes change things a lot in the art based on the script, and then Tom's like, great, and he'll work with that. And so sometimes even just the way we had drawn a scene, he'll be like, oh, well, we should use that to our advantage later on just because of how you did that.
Yeah.
So there's little things like that, but usually it's pretty consistent from beginning to... Mr. Miracle was weird only in that I told Tom from the very beginning I never wanted to know what was going to happen past whatever script I had, because I felt like I was kind of speaking for Scott Free. And if I knew something that he didn't, it would be untrue to how I told the story.
That's really interesting.
Yeah. So Mr. Miracle, I always got kept in the dark till the very end. Strange Adventures, I know pretty much how it all plays out.
Because you're not taking on the role of Adam Strange, I guess.
Yeah, exactly.
So
and Strange Adventures is more of a mystery than say Mr. Miracle was. So I want to know the beats in Strange Adventures so I can lay down the clues as we go.
And also, I guess that Mr. Miracle, in a way, was also more personal, because I'm not saying you are Scott Free and Jacob is West, but in a way.
Oh, very much.
Yeah, I don't want to say.
So when West was born, it was pretty much exactly a month after, or a month before, Jacob was born in the comics. So I used West as the model for Jacob the entire time. And so if West took his first steps, the next issue I worked on was Jacob taking his first steps. And so I have this like awesome little time capsule of the first, few months with my son, which is awesome. And I'm super proud of that book.
Yeah, just so you know, guys, his son took Spanish food in her mom's belly because he was here like not that many months before he was born. Do you miss Spanish food still?
What's that? Oh my God. Have you seen my Twitter where I just talk about Iberico ham all the time?
Yes.
I miss it so much.
It was a rhetorical question. You remember I can still send you things, so we'll talk about that.
I miss paella. Oh, that paella. That was so good.
The last night paella, I remember that. So you just told me that it's mostly stays on, some things don't change, but it just, so if it doesn't vary that much, why is the journey more important than the destination?
Because it's, for me, the most important thing is showing the characters going through the journey, not the artist and the writer or the readers. It's almost pretending like they're real in some way, and getting them there and showing the different emotions that characters go through to get to certain things, and how certain revelations that the creators have thrown their way, how that affects their emotions and their responses. And like I said, I get real
no. I love
about
it. This is what these little things I love to talk about in the show. That's the other part that I love, is you just mentioned sometimes that there's something that you draw that Tom picks up. I remember when Yannick was here, he told me that in Wonder Woman Earth 1 Volume 2, just to play, to poke fun at Grant, he drew like a small fish in a panel that was no relation at all with the story. And then he showed it. Grant was like, "Oh, we gotta tell the story of that fish." So he kept on that, and I've been told that Grant does that a lot of times. Things that are not on the script that artists put there just as a joke. They think that he's not going to, see it or pick it, but he always sees it, and he's like, "Oh, let's use it." So
that's awesome.
How much did you love that? That when you put something on a page, Tom picks up on it and says, "Oh, we can use this and create a story for that character, for that situation." Is that something
Evan's been doing it even more than me, where Evan has really been referencing the old Mystery in Space issues with all these obscure characters and stuff. And he'll just throw them in there, and then Tom will be like, "Wait, who's that?" And then Evan will explain the whole thing, and he's like, "Oh, well, then let's do this with him," and blah, blah.
But in Evan's case, it's not, I would say, serendipity, or you just put something there, and Evan is putting it in purpose for Tom to see it, like, I'm going to lure Tom so we can use him later, right?
There's an issue coming up. It's issue 7, so in America, it's the next story issue. But Tom set this whole thing up to save us time, because we're getting in that point, in that halfway thing where the deadline starts getting like
Yeah.
like real close. And so he set up this whole thing like, oh, I'll save Evan a lot of time and kind of be this thing. And then Evan just took it in this whole new weird direction that is taking him twice as long to do. And but like it's I don't know. I'm so excited for people to see it because it's mind-boggling.
Yeah.
And it's all just like nonsense from his head.
And then Tom has to make it have sense.
Yeah. Yep.
For Tom. So
Yeah.
um
Poor Clayton, our letterer, because
yeah.
the way we work, and I know a lot of people chastise creative teams for this, but like I mean, Tom takes 2-3 letter passes per issue.
Mm-hmm.
And Clayton sometimes has to re-letter an entire issue. But just because Tom will see things differently than how he wrote the script because we changed so much.
Yeah, but that's in a way that's normal because, as I said, you are third entity. So what's on the script is not going to be in the art, and what's in the art is gonna call back to the writing and say, "I need to change things to adapt to the art." So it's fluid, right? It's always in motion for you guys.
Yeah, yeah.
How difficult it is for you guys to say this issue is done? Be honest.
I don't think it's too hard for me. I've always been kind of the mindset where I don't noodle around with things too much. Again, my biggest focus is telling the story. So I feel like if that's clear and to the point, I don't need to sit there and monkey with shirt folds too long or anything like that.
Yeah. You were saying before that you see comics in a way as movies, but let's talk about storytelling for a second. Do you think storytelling is a symphony or a rock song?
Huh. I think it can be both. There's grand kind of changes and flow and movement and stuff that would be like a symphony, but at the same time, like things can get crazy and emotional and messy like a rock song.
Mm-hmm. I mostly think about it as a symphony because of the up and downs. How do you change the pace? Can you get really loud with the drums and etc.? Then you can go really emotional with the violins, etc. But I think that when you get into an action scene, a real hardcore action scene, that's rock. That's when you move from the symphony to a rock and roll, or even like Greg Capullo. Then you go to death metal. You go to heavy metal. Fucking crazy. Let's just go. And in some artists' cases, it's very easy to see. And Greg again is a perfect example. In his case, he moves from rock and roll to death metal.
Yeah.
It's very easy to see when you're moving in that pace, flowing, and suddenly gotta break it and make it a rock song.
Yep.
Do you have music in mind at all when you're drawing, or
sometimes that's not like a lot of the times, but it's not like I like put on a soundtrack and then like draw to the beat or anything. It's again, you're kind of seeing that movie in your head, so you're automatically putting soundtrack to it.
Mm-hmm.
So if I'm doing like an action scene in my head, I'm sitting there, or like if it's some big swelling emotional scene, there's a big orchestra in the back. And,
that's what I was asking about in your head, because Olivier Coipel, I loved his answer when I asked him about, do you have a soundtrack when you work? What do you have in the back? And he was telling me, when I do layouts, nothing. It's absolute silence. I need to put everything in place, focus, etc. Then when I move to pencils or to inks or colors, as he does in the covers, then I adapt my brain to the scene I want to draw. I am going to do an action scene, epic, then Lord of the Rings, Last of the Mohicans, whatever. So I put that emotion into the page. But if I want emotional, I will go, with classic romantic French music from whatever century to put myself into it. Do you do that at all, or even listen to podcasts or anything like that, or do you just a silence guy?
What I do, so all that stuff about the music and all that, it's generally, that's all just in my head.
Uh-huh.
But as far as like actually working all day long, I've got these AirPods in my ear, and I listen to usually it's always like horror podcasts. I don't
Hmm.
know what it is because I'm not like a huge horror fan. I don't consider myself a huge horror fan. Like I don't really enjoy horror movies too much or anything, but like the podcasts, like the fictional story podcasts, I'm obsessed. There's things like the No Sleep podcast or Creepy Pod, or there's funnier ones like Are You Afraid of These Stories? And there's a ton of them.
Hmm.
And I just have those in, and it just keeps my brain. I think what it does is it keeps my brain moving.
Hmm.
Where even with music, you can sometimes just kind of forget it's all there and you get a little stagnant until all of a sudden, like, oh, that song I like. Okay, all right. But with listening to stories or audiobooks, things like that, like it keeps my brain active, so it
Yeah.
keeps me active.
Yeah, that's what I'm asking because I always tell people I am the fifth of five kids, all male. So of course I didn't know silence at all when I was a kid, at all, like literally at all. So every time I'm in absolute silence around me, I think somebody's going to come behind me and is going to stop in the back. I'm not used to the silence. It's just I need to have an open window. So for you, it's the same thing in a way with the podcast. You need the cacophony, the
Yeah,
the sound
I
that.
can't. Yeah, I can't function without something going on.
Okay.
Yeah.
Uh, let's talk about whiskey.
All right. All
Okay.
right.
I'm going to give you five comics, and you have
Oh
to tell me
boy.
which kind of whiskey
Oh
they,
boy.
they are. Okay. And I know you're a specialist, so you're going to nail it.
All right.
Okay. So let's say double malt as Irish, Scotch, bourbon, and a couple more that I will let for you to choose. So
But here's my issue with this though is that my obsession with whiskey, and through no nationalist senses or anything, is pretty exclusively American.
okay,
Uh,
okay, it's fine.
bourbon and rye, and yeah.
It's fine. It's fine. So let's forget about the other ones.
All right.
Um, and let's not talk about Firewall, although he knows Spanish aguardiente and he's tasted it, and he has big balls because he drank it like a man. So, all joking aside, you choose the whiskey. I don't care.
All
Um,
right.
so, Watchman, what kind of whiskey it is?
Ooh, Watchmen. Um, Watchmen's classy. That's got to be like a nice 15-year bourbon. That's a sitting on a leather mahogany chair, enjoying a nice old single barrel.
One person told me once Watchman is a chocolate bourbon, and I almost killed her.
I can tell you what, I will never say chocolate bourbon.
It's like Watchmen. No, that one. Dark Knight, the original
Ooh,
Dark.
Dark Knight. I feel like that's got to be. I like this question. This is fun. Um, it's got to. That's got to be something strong, something like that, like really kind of knocks you back every sip.
Don't say
Uh,
Jägermeister, please.
no. God. Yeah, that's got to be something, but not like moonshine or anything like that. So it's still like 120 proof, but like still kind of classy, but something that like
Something that closes the gap between classic and modern. What can you
yeah,
in terms of
exactly.
whiskey?
Uh, I mean, it's tough. It's just got to be some sort of bourbon that's
Okay,
120 proof or more. Yeah.
perfect. Uh, Stanley's and Mobius Silver Surfer.
Ooh, all right. Um,
I just gave you the mix. The French
yeah,
guy,
yeah.
the innovator with the Stan, who innovated, also in American comics, but
All right.
classic
So
American.
there's a bourbon from Yellowstone that I enjoy that's finished in French oak casks, and it's got this cool cinnamon caramel note, but it's kind of like different. I like that. There we go.
That I gotta drink that one. And the last two, Mr. Miracle.
Mr. Miracle. It can't be too classy. It can't be something. It's got to be pretty young, but also like a little out of this world. So there is a line here that you can only get through a Patreon called Pursuit Spirits, and it's these guys that do these single barrel selections, but they're all really unique. They test a lot of barrels and they find the weird. Because the thing about bourbon that I think a lot of people don't know is that in order to be bourbon, there's all these rules, and one of the rules is in order to call your spirit a bourbon, you can't have any additives. So it's you've got your grains, you got your your rye, your corn, your malt, anything like that, wheat, but the taste profiles you get all these people talking about like, oh, I get caramel notes and vanilla and all this stuff, apple. It's not like they added apples to make it taste like that. It's literally just a mix of where the grains came from, what that soil was like, what part of the country it was, how it reacted with the wood, how long it stayed in the barrel. And so each barrel is actually unique. So when you get a what they call a single barrel, it's the uniqueness of that barrel. And if you get a small batch or just like a regular expression, what they do is they take many barrels and they mix it all together to get a standard profile. So single barrels can be all wacky, and that Pursuit Spirits, long story, Pursuit Spirits, they get these crazy ones, and there's one that's they're a podcast, so it's always just called episode whatever, and so it's like episode 28 or whatever, but it's a rye that the name of it is it puts the lime in the coconut and drinks it all up, and it's got this funky lime sensation to it, but then also this like mellowed coconut. And I think that's what I'm going for, Miss Miracle.
Okay, and do they send that to Spain? Because
they might.
I want it. You gotta tell me the Patreon. And of course, last, Strange Adventures.
Strange Adventures. So the Strange Adventures is interesting in that there's whiskey all over the place. I think Tom really was like, well, I know Mitch is obsessed with this, so let's give him something. So like, I think every issue has some form of whiskey in it. So what I've spent way too long thinking about it. So Adam and Alana are total whiskey snobs. They're super expensive, super nice, whatever, super old whiskeys. And then Mr. Terrific is just a Corona. And it's just to show that kind of like, I hate to say it, but like those Republican sensibilities and then the down home Democrat sensibility. But Strange Adventures, it's actually, I just put the bottle in issue 7. I mean, a bottle that looks like it.
Yeah.
But it's a brand called Old Fitzgerald, and it's 13-year bourbon, but it's just got this like real classy, kind of almost sculpture of a bottle with this like big kind of glass diamond looking top, and yeah. Nice. So that's Strange Adventures.
Okay, and just thought of in a movie. I'm going to ask you about whiskey in a movie, just one.
Okay.
Alien. You have to think. I always tell when I ask this question about different kind of liquors and Alien is they are factory workers. You know, they are not posh people.
Yeah.
Like the guys, the blue collar guys that are working here or in the mines, but now in space. If that helps.
Alien's a young rye. It's like a 4-year rye. It's got a lot of spice to it. Yeah.
Okay. Okay. Do you want us to go with the fan questions?
Yeah, let's do it.
So they don't think they won't kill you. Don't worry. They'll kill me if we don't answer the question.
Okay, good.
So let's go for it. Paula Ventimiglia from YouTube says hello. Hello. Pedro de Mercader also on YouTube. Hello, everyone. Josep Mier. Josep. As usual, I listen to you while I'm working. Big hugs to Mitch, Lauren, and Little West.
Oh, thanks, Joseph. He's like the best.
Yes, he is.
The best.
Oscar Silence Death. Hi, Mitch. Much love from Spain. What was your favorite issue from King's run on Batman? With your art or not?
It's not my art. It's the 2 issues that Clay did of Superman and Batman, where they go on the date and then they meet up beforehand, and then the second issue is they go on the date at the carnival. Those are by far my favorite. The little baseball scene at the end, that was awesome.
Yeah, I love Clay's work. Yes,
oh, me too.
Pedro de Mercader asks, did you end up hating the 3x3 pages?
Not at all. I loved it. They take longer, obviously, but I think they're more fulfilling. And like, I've now got this big old collection of nothing but 9-panel grids, and not a lot of artists can say that. It feels pretty good.
K Pauline 26, Baltimore Comic Con was a good online one. Calvin, Baltimore, okay.
We had a lot of fun. Yeah.
Blake Roybal. Blake Roybal asked, where did the idea of having 2 artists on Strange Adventures came from?
It was right from the start. When Tom pitched me the idea. So Tom pitched me the idea. He was actually at my house for the baptism of my son. He's the godfather. And so he's explaining his idea for Strange Adventures after we just came up with the character the day before. And so he's explaining the whole thing, and he's like, and the big kicker is we get another artist to do it.
The character one day, and the next he had the whole story.
Oh yeah, yep.
Okay.
We came up with it, or we were going through all my like trades and books I had on a shelf. And I was like, oh, what about Adam Strange? He's like, that could be cool. And then brought him back to his hotel that night, and then the next morning he's like, okay, I've got it. Laid the whole thing out.
Back at the hotel in a frenzy with no computer.
Exactly. And but he's like, yeah, the big kickers will get another artist to do it. And I was like, what are you talking about? You asshole. But then he explained it to me, like it's these 2 different times. And I was like, well, we should do it with 2 different artists. That would be amazing. And Evan was it was the first person I thought of and the first person Tom thought of. So, I mean, I've known Evan forever. So,
and as you are, because you both are, he's a fucking genius.
Yeah, he is. Yeah.
I hope, and I know it's going to happen that a lot more people takes notice and notice his work now, because you both are geniuses, but he needs more recognition, I think.
Yeah. Every single issue of Strange Adventures is a Evan Shaner showcase. It's awesome.
No, it's not Evan Shaner. It's Evan Shaner's craziness. Okay. I'm joking aside. That's what makes him a genius. Pedro Mercader, I find quite interesting the parallels between The Vision and Mr. Miracle. Did you guys have that book as a reference or not?
Only in that the original meeting between Dan DiDio and Tom to come up with a new book was, hey, Tom, we need you to do something like The Vision over here. And then Tom was like, I don't know what that means, but sure. And then Dan actually was the one who pitched Mr. Miracle to him, because Tom doesn't necessarily like to come up with the character. He likes to be given characters and then figure out how to make them important and special. And so, like even Adam Strange, he had me come up with that character. But yeah, so Mr. Miracle was born out of Dan mentioning Mr. Miracle, and then Tom mentioned Mr. Miracle to me, who's a I'm a huge fan since I was a kid. The Kirby issues and the Englehart and Marshall Rogers issues were things that my brothers gave me when I was just a little kid. And so I'd always been a fan. So when Tom said Mr. Miracle, I was 100% in.
I honestly thought it had been you and Dan drinking and then pitching it to Tom.
Kind of the other way. Yeah.
Blake Rival says, wait, you didn't mention Keith Giffen and J.M. DeMatteis and Kevin Maguire Justice League.
Well, that came later in my life. So like, just because of where I fell in life and reading comics, sometimes that old classic stuff comes back
absolutely,
later.
Absolutely, yeah. But you don't hate that era.
Oh God, no! It's amazing.
That's because some people think, if you like one, you have to hate the other, and I always say,
oh no, no.
Absolutely. Blake Rival, what's your favorite thing about drawing digitally?
My favorite thing about drawing digitally is that I get to be riskier. I get to be more brazen. I get to try new things. I'm not worried about, well, if I do this thing that's in my head, it might ruin the whole page. I can just undo digital. And so I get to, I get to be more excitable with my art. And I get to try, even if it's a little thing, like a certain brushstroke or something. I know if it doesn't work, I can delete it. But if it works, then I have magic. So
there's a brotherhood and sisterhood, guys, in comics that is called the Brotherhood and Sisterhood of Control C. Pip, you just can go erase and go back. Yeah. You don't have that in paper. I'm sorry to say. So it gives you a lot more lenience in a way to just go crazy, right? Because that I think it doesn't work. Just throw it away and start again.
Yeah, and when I was traditional, I found myself not getting away from storytelling, but not thinking about it as much as I wanted to because I was too focused on making perfect lines. So maybe I could sell a page or blah, blah, blah. And then I kind of realized that, and that's not why I got into comics. And so digital was the way to go.
So it allows you that freedom to, in a way, just see the comic as a pure form of art, right?
Of storytelling,
You don't have to worry about the container, which is the paper,
exactly.
Yep. But about the art on itself.
Yep. And then also too, I don't remember where I was going with that. Never mind.
It's fine. Remember, here we just can go anywhere, whatever the fuck we want. La Balda de Comic. He says, greetings, hello to you both. I love your work, Mitch. You are one of my favorite artists, and he says a big love.
Oh, awesome. Thank you.
And he says, thank you, David, for bringing us all these masters. Thank you, them, for being here. That's the most important thing. Pedro de Mercader, it seems that your Dr. Pig number for Batman must have been really messy fun. How did you come up with that creepy psychedelic mood?
That issue was probably the most fun I've ever had drawing a comic. That was just pure nonsense from front to start. It was fun because it's a bottle issue. I guess you'd call it a bottle episode because it all takes place in one room. But I knew it was part of the arc, so I knew it was a dream, and I knew I was coloring it, and so I could do all this kind of wacky stuff. My whole point on that issue was to make the reader as uncomfortable as possible, the whole 20 pages, and I had a lot of fun doing that.
Have you ever, a strange question for you, not a strange adventures, but a strange question, have you ever thought about colors as sounds?
Oh, absolutely. Yeah.
I don't mean synesthesia. I don't mean that
you
I mean, a color is going to project a certain emotion.
For me, coloring is both my favorite part and the most important part of my process, because it's where I get to transform drawings into a scene. I get to use color and how we see the world to influence the reader, how they're seeing that world. So Sheriff, I used a lot of real dusky browns and stuff because I wanted the reader to get thirsty. I mean, I wanted them to feel like they were in Iraq and sucking in all this dust. And I do things with Mr. Miracle and Strange Adventures where I want people to think, issue 6, and I know we're ahead in America versus what's coming out in Spain. But issue 6, my part all takes place outside in the Minnesota winter. And so I wanted it to feel like cold from Minnesota. I know what that feels like. And so that's all stuff I get to do in color, not the art, not the drawing. So,
so in a way, you were perfectly, how can I say it? In your brain, you're thinking, I want to be loud. I want the reader to feel this is loud, this is quiet. Yeah. So you're using the color
and with that,
to be a storyteller too, to tell the story too, right?
With that Batman issue, we were talking about the Nightmare issue. I used a lot of high saturated colors and a lot of sickly greens and stuff, again, to make the reader feel uncomfortable and make the reader get a little, and because I think how you affect the reader with color affects how they read it, which then affects their interpretation of it. I want them to close that book and be like, but I liked it.
Yeah. So let me ask you this. You have seen both versions of The Killing Joke. I mean, the originally colored by John Higgins and the one that Brian Bollard colored. What do you think about both in terms, I'm not thinking about quality, good, like best or not, in terms of giving you the emotions?
That one's always a hard one for me because I'm not usually a fan of the recoloring. And sometimes it's not even the recoloring, it's that things were colored and printed on different paper.
Yeah.
And then when they're presented without that different paper, it changes it. And sometimes there's a lot of nostalgia built in that you can't get over. Mm-hmm. There's some things that I read as a kid, and if I see them on perfect paper now, I hate it. And it might even look fine. It might even be the exact same colors. They might not have had changed anything, but now it's on perfect white paper, and before it was on that gray newsprint. Mm-hmm. And so that one's hard because Brian actually did the recolors.
That's why I'm asking the tricky question.
Yeah. Right? So you get this kind of weird thing of artist interpretation, and it's his art, so he can do what he wants with it. But also, I think it did lose some of the feeling of the original.
Yeah, that's why I was asking, because when I read both side by side, I always think Killing Joke told me from John Higgins, work. It said crazy. It said psychedelic. Yeah. It said, "Oh my God, you're going to go." You don't understand how crazy this book is going to be. Yeah. From the beginning to the fair to the last moment when Batman puts his arm in the Joker's and you don't know if he's going to kill him or not, etc., etc. The open ending that Alan did and Brian did. But then I read Under the Brian and said, "This is perfect. This is good coloring, but it's cold." And Killing Joke needed crazy. So that's why I'm asking you if, in this case, he lost the crazy that we read as.
Yeah.
There's also a factor of nostalgia. I agree with you. That's what we read when we were kids. But I think he needed crazy. That's the only thing I can say.
Yeah. No, it's for sure. And it's a thing I've butted my heads with, like DC with before too, is there's editors and higher ups and stuff that think Batman should always be the exact same color no matter what he's in.
Yeah.
So if for me, it doesn't make any sense that he would be at nighttime and his gray would still be the same gray as if he's out in the sun. Like, that changes. It needs to change. Otherwise it's weird, but sometimes branding gets ahead of storytelling.
Yeah. So. The Batman should never sit down and these kind of things.
Yeah.
Which are branding. This is branding, but sometimes a man's gotta go pee. Anyway, Hernan Gonzalez says, "Big hugs for Mitch. He's one of the best comic creators in the world. Thank you so much, David, for being us this titan. You're a titan."
Oh.
There you go. Carmen Carnero. Hello, Carmen.
Oh, Carmen.
She says, "Run, Mitch. It's a trap." But first,
a little late. A little late,
But
Carmen.
first, yes, that's why I read it so late, because I knew she was coming. Now, all kidding aside, but first, show us the figures in the back. Just so you know,
Okay.
Carmen always asks to see the studios of people, so you're going to make her really happy.
Oh, just got a few back there. Yeah, okay, that's over here.
Nice. Thank you. Carmen is happy now.
Well, good.
And we do everything to make Carmen happy. Thank you, Carmen. Alana Lucero Blanco. Greetings from Spain. Hello. Greetings from Spain, Mitch. Love your work. Hernan Gonzalez. I wanted to ask Mitch if he and Tom King have thought about creating a sequel for Sheriff of Babylon.
We have. Tom has it written. It's been written for a long time, actually. The reason we haven't done it yet is a couple things. One is we've been having a ton of fun playing in the DC sandbox, and and that's kind of where a lot of our more fun ideas come from. I mean, Sheriff was. I'm beyond proud of Sheriff, but like it was emotionally taxing to do. That was an intense book. And then kind of the bigger reason is a more inside baseball business reason is we're waiting to get back the rights on it because right now it's owned by DC Vertigo, even though it's a creator-owned book, the Vertigo deal and all that. So we're waiting for us to get that back before we do our sequel.
Just so you know how far was that book ready, when Mitch was here in Barcelona, one fan asked him, when is Sheriff of Babylon going to come back? He's like, well, I think I'm going to start working on it when I'm back. So things change. Mike Perkins. Hello, Mike. Mike Perkins, the artist from Facebook, says, Mitch, what is the finest cocktail in the world?
The old-fashioned, of course.
Mike. You knew the answer.
Mike, come on. Are you trying to set me up here?
Yeah, absolutely. Victor Herrera Q. Hi from Colombia to the master Mitch. Now you're a master, not Titan. Just so you know. You're going to get the epithets. How did you feel when you got your first comic job? What do you recommend to an artist looking to enter the industry?
Oh man. When I got my first like real work for hire gig, it came at a crazy time where I had been let go from my design job because we lost a client. So everyone who did work for that client all got booted. And so I was collecting unemployment and I was like, oh, I should, before I go apply for more design stuff, I want to give comics a shot. Because I never gave it a real shot before because I always knew how tough it was to get into. And I wanted to get out of my parents' house. So when I got that first, like the first work for hire thing I ever did was I colored a book for Boom called Stanley's Starborn. It's crazy too because it was Chris Roberson wrote it. It's a Stan Lee idea, and then I colored Kari Randolph and Matteo Scalera, which are now they're awesome and huge and big. So like we all got to kind of not start out there, but or at least I did. But Matteo started there, I started there, and Kari had done a couple things before that. But so that was like super rewarding, but also then that led to Doctor Who, which led to The Activity. And so like, but even the craziest thing about comics, and it's something you said at the beginning about we don't do this to get rich, is when I was doing Starborn, I was getting paid so little that I could still get unemployment. When I did, actually, Doctor Who was the first, and they were only 8-page things. But the first time I got paid like an actual, like, oh my gosh, I can actually pay my rent. And then the activity is a weird one where it's an image book, so like you own it and it's all royalties. But I mean, as the single issues were coming out, which was 16, barely got paid anything. In royalties now, it's been kind of good. We get random royalties still. But like at the time, and I was just scraping by. I mean, even doing the activity, which was a couple years into my career, my wife, who was then my girlfriend at the time, was helping me pay rent and
Mm-hmm.
things. She was helping me pay rent on a house she wasn't even living at. It was tough. And then The Punisher, Marvel, was the first time where I was like, oh, I can actually do this and not die. And so I always consider that my first like real like work for hire gig, in that I was doing something to support myself and
Mm-hmm.
follow my dreams. Um, yeah.
But that says a
And
lot.
then
Go, please.
and then your second question about advice for someone trying to get in. Um, if you're saying it from an artist perspective, there's a thing I always tell fans, especially young fans who are looking to develop and break in, is get really good at backgrounds. Um, I know they're not as fun to draw as Batman swinging through the sky and all that, but the majority of a comic book that you draw is not people swinging around and doing cool poses. So if you can draw Peter Parker sitting at a kitchen just as good as you can draw him swinging through the sky, like that's where you'll set yourself apart.
Yes, I always give an advice to. But first, I want to say that for you, Mikkel Hanning, and a lot of other guys have always told me the same thing. Thanks to the amazing support we've had from our girlfriends or wives
Oh my God, yes,
at the
yeah.
beginning, at the hard times, we are where we are.
Without
That's why
without external
they are so
support, it's
important
almost
for us.
impossible. Yeah,
Yeah, they are so important
yeah,
for us because they've always been there.
yeah.
And the second part, when you're talking about the backgrounds, I always say, tell me if you agree. And I learned this from Bob's Rec many years ago. An artist, gave me pages for him to see, and Bob said, "Look at that building. It doesn't look like anybody has lived on it. It in this town. It's supposed to be New York. It rains. It pours. It has to be eroded. Where's the
Mm-hmm.
blinders? Why do we don't have light in one window and it's black in the other one? If you do that, just thinking about it as something real,
Yep,
it looks real, and the mind of the reader is going to make it real. If you
yep,
just go some four
yep.
lines and do a
And
square, nobody cares.
anyone who tells you that like reference is cheating is an idiot. Straight up. Like reference is the world around us, which is what we're trying to emulate.
Yeah.
And so if you're not looking at it, you're not going to make it look real. And even I don't even mean real like make it look like Alex Ross or anything. It's just things need to look a certain way for our brains to interpret it as that. A building is not a rectangle. So look at buildings. Look how skyscrapers work.
Yeah, absolutely. And it's also about you need to understand reality to be able to abstract it, because what you do is abstractions of reality.
Yeah.
So you need to understand it with that reference. So as I always say, that tree doesn't look real. It looks like you copied from a comic. Just look out the fucking window.
Yeah, exactly.
Just learn to draw that tree that is real, how the leaves move,
Mm-hmm.
how the branches move, and then you go back to the page and it's going to look real, right?
Yep.
So reference is not bad. You just need to understand the buildings you see on the street to use that reference, right?
Yep.
Okay. K Pauline 26, you are the man, Mitch. Titan Master, and you're the man. Daniel Ureña, hi Mitch from Costa Rica. Mr. Miracle is an incredible series. What was the hardest thing for you to draw in that series?
Oh boy. Well, first of all, I need to get back to Costa Rica. That's where we went on our honeymoon. I loved it. Hardest thing in Mr. Miracle. I mean, each issue was 22 pages, so it's two more than a normal comic, and every page was 9 panels. So it was more about hitting the deadline that was the hardest part than actually like the hardest thing to draw in the book. It was more about figuring out how much more work I had to put into it to meet that deadline each time.
In a way, was it difficult at all to draw Jacob because he was also your son, emotionally or not?
No, I think it was the exact opposite. I think every time I drew Jacob, it was kind of this fun break, this exciting thing where I got to draw my new son into a comic book.
That's
So, yeah, I tried to put him in as much as I could.
yeah. I would do the same as you, by the way. Alana Lucero Blanco, what series of you have you enjoyed drawing the most?
Mr. Miracle, for sure. Even though it was tough to do, I think every time I finished an issue, I realized how rewarding it was on a creative standpoint.
And then
Yeah.
you wanted to kill yourself before starting the new one.
Yeah, pretty much.
That's how it works, guys. So, as we said, you don't do comics to get rich, and there's a small part, a big part of masochism in that.
Yeah, and like the thing I always think of too is like there is no better feeling than having like this. Like,
Yes.
it is a collection of a thing I did, and it's done, and I will always have that, and it was worth it all.
Absolutely. Robotman, hi, Mr. Gerads. When it comes to make panel repetitions on a story, do you feel it helps with the pacing of said story, or is it more to save time? Love your work on Mr. Miracle.
I wish it did save time, but like I do all this crazy stuff when I repeat panels where I change things almost imperceptibly and I obsess over it. But it's all in the thought process of why I'm doing it, not the activity of doing it.
Yeah.
When I do the repeating panel thing, it is me trying to convey, like you said, time and space in that moment. And it's a trick that I like to do and I know how to do. And if I apply it, it's because I want the reader to see it that way. And so when I do the repeating panel thing, it's a total choice. And I'm not doing it to save time. I wish I was.
It doesn't. I think you're like Carlos Pacheco in a big way. He always tells me that he takes a lot more time thinking how the panel is going to be, how the page is going to be, the composition of the whole panel, the storytelling of a page or a sequence, and then than the actual drawing. So it's more.
Yep.
In your case, the repetition of the panels is not about saving time. It's about.
And what's funny is
how it's going to work.
It's all inspired from my childhood reading comic strips, Garfield and Calvin and Hobbes and all these things where you have your start of your thing, your middle, and your punchline, and that's the whole process for me. Like I'm doing the Garfield trick of moving in time to get to the punchline.
So what's the biggest influence? Garfield, Calvin and Hobbes, or Peanuts?
Calvin and Hobbes, for sure.
I knew there was a reason I loved you.
I don't think anything in my life has ever influenced me as much as Calvin and Hobbes.
Absolutely. It's I have all the volumes here. I have like
Yeah.
I think I have like 4 or 5 different formats. And if they do more, I'll probably do it again. So, one of the dreams of my life is to meet the guy that is impossible to meet, which is
yeah.
I guess that's
Bill Watterson, yeah.
Like Bill Watterson. Now you can fuck. Let me see. Your storytelling is really great because of that reason, because it shows you're more interested about the journey. K. Paul in 26 says.
Oh, thank you.
Pedro Mercaderes, did Wayne Enterprises sue you for the Batman Kill Babies panel?
Nope.
Calvin Allen says, we just saw a Starbucks cameo. There you go. Comic Sans, which is Giuseppe, is his comic store. You don't have to clarify, Giuseppe. We know it's you. Your style is very personal, and I love it. But what artists influenced you and your work?
My biggest influence, I would say, is Norman Rockwell. In that he's by far my favorite artist because he does this thing where he does a single image and you get 20 pages of story in that single image.
Yeah.
You can interpret everything that happened before, everything that's going to happen afterwards, every emotion. It's every piece he did is magic to me, and I constantly think about how I can bring that to each panel I do.
Sometimes I ask artists to pick between Mucha, whatever you want to put, and Rockwell. In your case, I haven't asked because I know the crowd. I know the it's really obvious. But what do you think about Mucha?
Oh, I love him. Yeah, I mean, especially the design side of me is obsessed. Yeah.
Yeah, I can see that. Tito James asks, I want, oh no, it doesn't ask, he affirms, I want you to, and Tom, to do a whiskey comic.
I would do it.
Well, in a way.
I mean, Strange Adventures pretty much is, yeah.
That's what I was going to say. In a way, I don't know how far you are, Tito, because in Spain, I think we are only in issue 1 yet, 1 or 2.
Yeah.
So, maybe not yet, but believe me, when you get there, you will see.
Does the Spanish editions do... I remember from when I was there where like an issue of Batman comes out and it's usually 2 issues combined, or do they...
It depends on the comic. I think that Strange Adventures and Mr. Miracle were like 1
single, okay.
Because since there are 12 issues, they want, and I love that they do that on ECC. That they love that the book keeps the same pace, as because the story is thought out to be read in that.
Yeah.
Then of course they collected, and I think I have the collection somewhere here. But I think guys can correct me there. But I think it's 1 issue. So the Strange Adventures they just published, I think it's issue 1 only. But,
okay, gotcha.
But I'm probably wrong because I read the original. My wife is not close, so because as you know, it's CCC, and she would fucking kill me if I was saying now. I just read the original.
Please say hi to her for me.
Yeah, no, she will come back and say she never shows up on the live feed, but she will come back after and the kid to just say hello. She told me to call her, so if I don't, I'm dead, and we don't want that. Well, probably the guys do, but I don't want to die. Blake Roybal, you're into whiskey. Yes, he is. When will you become a cigar connoisseur?
I don't know. It's been a long time since I've had a cigar. A long time. I don't know. I like it's funny, like I like the smell of cigars, but I don't necessarily like the smoking of cigars. I'm not a smoker. I don't. The burning back there, I'm not a fan of.
Yeah. You know what? Let's keep the cigars. I'm a cigarette smoker, and cigars like you just want to die. So, no, and I should quit smoking anyway. That goes. I am. What is your favorite Strange Adventures cover so far?
Favorite Strange Adventures cover? Ooh. Let's see. Going through all of them in my head. I would say my favorite is the one for issue 7 coming up. It's the one I did based off Bob Peak.
Wow.
Yeah. So it basically is Bob Peak. I even did my signature at the bottom. I made it look like his. So
nice, guys. Look for it. It's already. They published that cover already, right?
Yes. Yeah, it's out there. Yeah.
So go for it. La Balda Comics. If you could draw any Marvel character in an ongoing, and I laugh, it's myself, or 12 issue series, which one would it be?
A Marvel character. I have this discussion with guys a lot, and like I'm such a DC kid and always has been that it's always tough. I would say Captain America because he's always been my favorite Marvel character, but I've always felt like I don't draw him well, and he's frustrating. So I don't know if I would want to do that. I think a really fun character to draw would be Black Panther, just from a design standpoint and shadows and light and stuff.
I was going to say Black Panther, Spider-Man, or Moon Knight.
Moon Knight I would do for the exact Moon Knight I would do for the exact opposite reason of what I would want to do with Black Panther.
Yes,
that would be the blacks on white, and this would be the whites on blacks. Yeah.
Absolutely. Jorge Fornes. Hey, hello, Jorge.
Hey, Jorge.
He says, this man isn't Mitch. I don't see an empty old-fashioned glass or anywhere around.
It is 9 a.m. here.
Yeah, exactly. Jorge, we don't talk about those things in public. That's. By the way, I think it's Jorge's birthday today.
Happy birthday, Jorge.
Happy birthday, Jorge. In case he isn't, I just messed up. Sorry. Blake Roybal, what is your favorite comic book and why?
Favorite comic book? That's also a tough one. I never do good with these like favorite questions. Like, what's your favorite movie? Because I just like a lot of stuff. Favorite? I mean, it's a toss-up between two very different books. I'd say it's a toss-up between Batman Year One and Bone.
And why?
For very different reasons.
By the way, by the way, just you guys know this, but let me repeat it. We have Jeff Smith on Friday.
Awesome.
So why then?
Bone is this, like, when I was reading it, I mean, it sounds generic, but it's true. It's like there was nothing like this. And it felt like I was reading a thing for kids and also like not for kids. And there's something magical about stories like that. Like a lot of the movies in the 80s are these movies that are like for kids, but also like terrifying and not for kids.
Yeah. Well, all of the Disney stories originally were for kids.
Oh, yeah, exactly. Yeah. But I mean, you look at things like Temple of Doom and things like that, where like it's a terrifying movie, but it's
still my favorite Indiana Jones movie. Sorry, I'm not.
Mine too. Mine too.
See, there's another.
Yeah. So that was my thing, and then I don't know. It just seemed like imagination gone wild, which was really fun to watch or fun to see. And then Batman Year One is just this like. Everything I love about Batman is the whole story of Batman being a normal person who took it upon himself to become the Batman.
Yes.
And that's what Batman Year One is all about. And, you know, it's my favorite movie scene of all time is the Batman Begins scene where Bruce Wayne is in the prison camp at the very beginning. And like there's just something magic to me about that character to begin with. But then knowing that he started out as someone who just wanted to accomplish something.
Yeah.
And that's kind of been the magic for Batman for me.
I remember when I read Year One for the first time. I think I finished reading it before I finished reading Watchmen, so that predates it. I said, this is a perfect comic. I haven't said in terms of the union between the art and the story. And that everything clicked. You know that from beginning to end. And I don't say that, and I've told that to Frank to his face, so I've survived it. That I think if Dark Knight is more spectacular, and it could be a bigger game changer in terms of comic for good and bad reasons, as we know, I think Dark Knight is Year One is his most perfect.
I agree. Yep. I would say in the Frank Miller opus, I'd go Year One, Born Again, Dark Knight.
Absolutely, because it's the same thing. For me, Born Again is like the training wheels for Dark Knight, but they both work so much as a whole. If you read them one after the other, and it doesn't happen with Dark Knight. Dark Knight is another. It's a
separate thing. Yeah.
Okay. Let me see. Sebastian Narvaez or Sebastian. Sorry. Why doing line art feels so much better to do on paper and not so much in digital? I think you're talking to the wrong.
Other way around.
Yes. I think you're talking. I'm sorry. Daniel Coloma. Hi, Mitch. Love your work so much. I'm drawing a 3x3 panel grid page, and it's very hard. You were a beast, Mr. Miracle.
See, I think Tom did something to comics with Mr. Miracle where before writers were always scared to do the 9-panel grid because they didn't want their artists to get mad at them. And then Tom went ahead and did a 12-issue book of them. And now artists or writers keep doing them all over the place. So that's Tom's fault. Sorry.
I could say with one exception. Greg Rucka never had any problems with that.
That's true. Yeah.
And he never had any problems with artists hating him either. Anyway, but yeah, no, I agree with the trend. Tom created the trend. That's true. That's true. Greg was. He's not listening. I'm sorry. Greg, it was an isolated island around. Sorry, Greg. Rick Pepinillo. Okay. What series of or artists would you recommend us to follow? Have you had a reference author that has marked your style?
I don't know if I understand the question.
I think he's asking if you recommend any current artist aside of you that he should follow as an artist, and if you have an artist that is your, for example, Adam Hughes, Jose Luis Garcia Lopez came in and said hello, and what Adam did, showing us his desk, and he had a really torn old copy of Cinder Nas, and he was like, every time I have a problem, I just pick this and check it.
Okay.
Have the solution. So
the stuff I keep on my desk all the time is, ironically, it's Adam Hughes's. Anytime I work on a cover, I break out Adam Hughes's Cover Run, the DC book. I think Adam Hughes is not only like a great comic artist, he's like a great American illustrator.
Yes.
Just the way that he sees form and function and all these things. And I know he's very well known for his pretty buxom ladies, but he's more than that on a lot of levels. He's like, for me, Adam Hughes is almost modern Rockwell. So I have
although many people identifies him with Mucha.
Yeah, exactly.
And I say that's the layer, just the first layer. But you scratch it, there's a lot more Rockwell than in his Mucha.
Yep. And the other one is John Paul Leon. I always have John Paul Leon books around. He is my favorite comic book artist for sure. I just got there's a French edition of
the
Creature of the Night that's black and white.
Yeah, I keep repeating. I don't know, but three times last week, I kept saying, if you haven't read Creature of the Night, go. Yeah. If you love comics, you gotta go and read that. That's because that's about. I
agree. But as far as like, there's an artist, Greg Smallwood.
Mm-hmm.
He hasn't done a ton, but he shows up every once in a while here and there. I think he is phenomenal.
I always mention him and Daniel Warren Johnson, as
the
next wave people should check out.
Yep. Yeah. So keep your eyes open for him for sure.
Mm-hmm. Mitch, I studied your work like crazy. Congrats on your wonderful work. What are your main influences nowadays?
I'm kind of the same thing. It's Rockwell, Hughes, John Paul Leon. I mean, I tend to be influenced these days less by other comics and more by people like Rockwell or John Whitcomb, Austin Briggs, Al Parker, all these advertising artists from like the mid 50s to like mid 70s.
You have to say Ivan Shainer so he doesn't get mad at us.
Yeah, but he's doing the book that I'm also on. I didn't want to, but I mean, Evan is. Not even like trying to sell my own book, but I think Evan is one of the best in the game right now.
I was just kidding, but you gotta. Yeah. If you don't know Evan's work, you're late. Yeah. You should.
If you don't know Evan's work, pick up Strange Adventures.
There you go. It's just a coincidence that Mitch is also doing that book. We are not trying to sell it. Blah, blah, blah. Yes, I'm trying to sell it. He's not, but I'm trying because he's my friend. Let me see. Mikael Teixeira. Mitch, do you listen to music for inspiration? If so, what genre?
We kind of touched on this before. Yeah. I'm pretty obsessed with these horror podcasts. So, I mean, I'm not even joking.
What I like about this question is the part about the inspiration. If you find any inspiration in music.
Oh, I 100% do. I am really inspired. Like, there's a new, the new Springsteen album that just came out a couple days ago, and I think it's one of his best, which is saying a lot. And there's something about Springsteen that like really just cuts to me, and I love it, where like you just get the sense of a real person.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely.
If that makes any sense. Yeah.
Absolutely. Have you watched the documentary?
Yeah. Yep.
I love Springsteen. I think he's probably his best album. Right? But maybe I'm going too far, but maybe in 20 years. But it's so good.
I agree. I agree.
I listened to the single and I was like, okay, this is like the last.
And a few of the songs on it are lost songs from like the 70s, so that may answer it. But
what's your favorite Springsteen album?
I know it's well, I mean,
I can tell you mine first if that helps you say other, but I can tell you mine first if you want to.
Okay.
So you don't think it's a trick question. Mine is Darkness on the Edge of Town.
Okay.
Which is not the usual answer, I know.
No, it's a phenomenal album. I know it's trite, but I feel like I have to say Born in the USA. Just because so many of those songs went on to become things for a reason.
Yeah.
I think every time I listen to that album, it just like fills me with this kind of joy and excitement, and yeah.
In my case, it was Born in the USA, but when I watched the documentary of the making of Darkness on the Edge of Town, how difficult it was, how the guy stole all his rights and all that, I was like, wow, the life experience to get
I mean,
reality. That's
a tough question because he's got a lot of good ones.
Absolutely, and that's some guys who don't understand English in songs think that Born in the USA is such a patriotic blah 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 album, and I'm like, no, that's like thinking
it gets used here all the time.
Such a patriotic book. Go read Engelhardt. No, it's not.
It shows up at like every Republican gathering here, and it's like, you guys don't understand.
You don't get it at all.
Pick up a lyrics book.
Yeah, just Born in the USA as a song.
Yeah,
exactly the opposite. Like, no, guys, this is not a patriotic song. This is putting people in their place. About what America is, which is the part that I love the most about that album.
Exactly, it's a protest song.
Yeah, he doesn't, he doesn't stay quiet. That album is about, this is my country. This is how we gotta work to make it better.
Yep.
Greg McCain, I to the chat. Forgive me if the question has been already asked, but are you still doing the backgrounds traditionally for Strange Adventures?
I am.
Still?
Yeah, it's been awesome. So I'm doing this thing where all the characters are digital and then all the backgrounds are traditional. And again, it's based on my influences of that kind of mid-50s to mid-70s artists where the backgrounds are a little more loosey-goosey, a little more fuzzy, and I was doing all these things digitally to try to replicate that when I realized that I could just get real messy with some paper and achieve that look. Whereas I don't want to do that with the figures because then it just makes a big mess. But if I do it with the backgrounds, and then you kind of get this cool thing almost where like it's blurred. So you get a foreground and a background, but it's not blurred. It's just the messiness of how it was created.
Mm-hmm. I love the answer because last week Adam Curate was telling me that originally he wanted to be a Disney animator, but not because of the foreground figures. He wanted to be the background.
Oh,
the guy
cool.
with the backgrounds. So, and he was telling me because that guy was the guy who was in control, of doing all the background thing, and it was not there's like 30 people animating a character, but it was one guy doing the backgrounds. That's so it was going to be his part. This is also a part of why you do it. Do you think that doing the backgrounds as a separate thing, like in paper, makes it more alive?
Yeah, I mean, for me, it's just how they work together. Mm-hmm. The mix of the two, like, it's not jarring. I mean, it's not like it's like, oh, I can obviously tell. But I just found a way where it complements each other, and I think, I don't know, anything I can do that excites me as an artist, I feel like I get to put it on the page then, and hopefully the reader will see it as well as to how excited I am.
Mm-hmm.
Because you can tell when an artist is bored.
Yep.
It's obvious.
Absolutely. It's you can see it in 2 panels. And it's like,
Yeah.
okay, he doesn't care about what he's doing.
No.
That's another thing that I also discuss a lot with young artists. It's like it's pretty obvious to see what you like and what you hate. It cannot be. I'm sorry. Part of this job is the editor can never see, and if the editor sees it, the reader is going to see it 4 times more. That you're bored, that you don't like this. The moment we see that, we disconnect.
Yep.
Subconsciously, we disconnect because we know you don't care. Why are we going to care?
Yeah, exactly.
Let me see. Thank you by Jorge Fornes. So it's his birthday. So happy birthday again. Josué Fernando Saucedo. Greetings from Mexico.
All right.
Hopefully one day you can come to a convention here.
One day I want to go everywhere now.
It'll happen. The moment you know the Victor Frankenstein thing works, we're free. We will go everywhere because we will. Part of queering the pandemic is we are going to create transport like in Star Trek, so we will go everywhere at the same time. Not even high-speed trains or planes. No, we're going to invent transportation because we're so mad of being at homes all the time. Somebody's going to invent transportation.
I like it.
Good.
I enjoy it.
Javier González Delgado. Hi, Mitch. Congratulations for your amazing career. Have you had any manga and or Japanese artist influences?
Not necessarily. I went through I'm probably going to butcher how you pronounce his name, but Masamune Shiro.
Masamune Shiro, yes.
Yeah. I was a big fan of him. I haven't really kept up a lot, but I remember when Ghost in the Shell was first coming out and all the controversy around all the adult stuff versus whatever. And I was right at the age where I was like, yeah, bring on the adult stuff. And so that excited me. But then just kind of like how he drew all that was really cool. But I don't know. I don't have a ton of manga or anime influences. It's just not. It's not that I don't like it. It's just that it doesn't speak to me on some level.
Not even Otomo.
I mean, again, there's things I mean, don't get me wrong, I appreciate about all of it. I just don't know if I would consider it like that really.
Yeah, Akira speaks to me and all that. I understand. No, but the Shiro thing, I hate the new reprints when they censor everything.
Oh yeah.
I hate it. Like it's part of the story. This is an adult story. What's going on? So and then I heard it's him trying to sell more books. And it's like, okay, it's a creator. He has all the right in the world to do that. But I think censoring makes for a worse book.
Yeah, I agree, 100%.
Okay, Café con Kafka, Coffee with Kafka says, "Hi Mitch, I love the Strange Adventure so far. How is it working with another art in different timelines, but it's still being the same story?"
It's fun. It's so Evan, Tom, me, and Clay have this chat group that we're on all day long. They're all chatting right now, so it keeps popping up on my screen. But so Evan and I do a thing, and we didn't even plan this. We just both found out we were doing it, where we get a script from Tom, and the first thing I do is I open it up in Microsoft Word and I go through and I delete all of Evan's panels. And so I work completely from a script that just has my information on it.
Mm-hmm.
And Evan does the same thing. He deletes all mine. And then he sends me all his work and then I compile it into the final pages. So I get to see his art before it comes out, but I don't actually read his story until it comes out, just like the rest of you.
Nice.
And so it's this cool thing where I get to both work on my favorite book and read my favorite book at the same time, or when they come out. And so that's been really cool. And then also just kind of the kismet that happens of some of those panel transitions where he does one and then I do another one, and how it kind of works out. And that's been fun to watch. And then there's been a couple of times where Evan's been like, hey, I want to do this with the middle panel. What does your top panel look like? Things like that. But it's been really fun. It's been unique, which I think is the real exciting part about it.
That's part of the point, right?
Yeah, exactly.
Geraldo Borges, what is the most difficult thing to draw for you in a comic? For me, horses are always a challenge. And huge congrats to you. Mr. Miracle is already definitely a modern DC classic.
Well, thank you. Yeah, I think for me, I mean, because like I said before, like I reference everything. Like if I have to draw a horse, you better believe I'm going to go look at a million pictures of a horse. I'm not going to try to wing it.
Mm-hmm.
Same with vehicles, cars, whatever, buildings. But for me, it's crowd scenes.
Mm-hmm.
And then like a thing too where I recognize I have the same problem now, kind of, as I did when I was a kid, where I'm very excited to draw the main thing, and then the ancillary things, the secondary things, I'm like, I'll just kind of get through, and I have to stop myself and be like, no, this background character needs to look just as good as the foreground character.
Mm-hmm.
So it's just a lot of things like that, like catching myself, and I think crowds, because I'm so obsessed with interpretation of people and having lives and emotions and all this stuff that I can't just like doodle a person in a background. They've got to be doing something. There's got to be a reason they're there. So crowds are tough only because I want everyone to have a story.
Yeah. I was talking the other day, I think it was Gabriel Rodriguez, and we were talking about, repeating a panel. And he was the same thing. He was telling me, but I have to change what they do in the background. Even if it's the same character, I am not going to repeat that. When people think I'm repeating, like, no. Maybe the first what you have in the foreground, but everything that's in the background is going to change. I change expression. People is moving. There's a guy that wasn't there. The other one is, maybe looking at his watch or something like that.
Yep.
So that's why I say when they say, "Oh, repeating panel saves time," no, it doesn't, because everything that's happening in the background, you're obsessed for making it be alive, right?
Yeah.
Okay, so let me see. Giuseppe says, "Bye, David and Mitch. Hope to see you soon. Big hugs." I guess he's closing the store. And let me. Oh, yeah. Alstor. No, wait. Josue Fernando. Sorry. I love the chemistry of Strange Adventures covers from you and Doc. It's something I've never seen in comics before.
Yeah, it's so much fun.
Mm-hmm.
Doing the covers where we bounce off each other. Yeah, I mean, like, kind of been the big theme of this whole interview is I like doing things that are new and exciting that I'm not used to.
Yeah, that's also why you keep coming back to comics, right?
Yeah,
To try
exactly.
to keep yourself excited and try new things. Because if you, as we said before, going back to 2 minutes ago, if you get bored, people is going to notice.
Exactly.
Alistair Smite. Mitch, what happened with that Batman food? Big fan.
Oh, are you talking about? I don't know if you can see that. I have a figure back there who's missing a foot. Is that what you're talking about?
I guess so. I have no idea. And Alistair Smite sounds like a fake name. Somebody's messing with us. No, I don't know who, but somebody's messing with us. Anyway, we're almost 2 hours in, and you have a life to go back to. So let me one last question, and then I let you roam free.
Sounds good.
Because I have your, Is there something that's been nagging you for a long time? It's like, I want to do that in terms of comics, I mean, but you haven't been able, and you say, I am not going to retire or die, because honestly, I don't see you retiring. Saying, I am going to sooner or later do that. Is this that thing?
I don't know. Like, there's nothing eating me alive about something I want to do. In just that, I want to do something new each time. The thing Tom and I are working on next is, I mean, it's just a pitch, so who knows? They might say no. But I'm kind of the showrunner on it. It's a genre and a character and an approach that is not something Tom and I normally do. And it's really out of our wheelhouse. And I have all these ideas, and I've become a little obsessive about it in that I want it to happen because I've never like come up with the entire idea before. And I think it'll be fun for Tom and I to do something that both of us have no. I think So I'll say it like it's a horror story, and I think one of the things that will benefit Tom and I is neither of us are big horror people, so we're not going into it with any preconceptions of what horror is.
Yeah, you have
Where
this.
I think a lot of comics, when they say, "Oh, it's gonna be a horror comic," like it's always just like a scary monster and some people screaming and running, and that's their horror comic. It's not scary. But the idea that I have is something like where I want to make people genuinely like uncomfortable. And
Yeah,
so,
and you guys have distance, right? Since you are not big horror fans, you can
yeah,
look at it objectively. That makes
yep,
it more interesting, right?
yeah. And so I'm really excited about that.
Mm-hmm.
And so, yeah, I don't know. I just like doing these new things with Tom.
Yeah, absolutely. I remember when I asked Peter Milligan the same question, his answer was beautiful, and I love it. So like, what is the thing? Just and he said, always the next one I'm doing. There's never been any.
Yeah,
the next one I'm doing is the one that it's been nagging me for ages because that's the reason I do it. If not, I wouldn't do it.
I've been extremely lucky in my career that I've never. I mean, with the exception of Punisher, but Punisher was less about the character and the story and more about me and my career at the time. But as far as like my DC career, I've been very fortunate in that I've never had a project that was just like a filler. Like, oh, I'm just going to do a few issues of this and whatever. Everything, including like just the little Batman issues, have been things that I've been very excited about, very happy with, very like they meant something to me. Like there was a reason I was doing them. And you know, there's a lot of guys in this career who have been in it for much longer than me who can't say that, who are trying to get their next 12 issue thing because they've been bouncing around from this to this and this.
Mm-hmm.
And so I've been very fortunate, and I try to use that to my advantage and always remember that.
Mm-hmm. One piece of advice for you guys who are watching this: if you don't care about something, don't do the work.
Sure.
You know, is care about it, love what you do. If you're going to do a book or a genre or a story that doesn't interest you, like as we said, readers are going to notice. So do what you love.
Yep.
That's the most important thing. So as a goodbye, K Pauling 26, thanks Mitch. Good luck with your work. Keep safe. Café con Kafka, Mitch, you have a lot of fans here in Peru.
Oh, awesome.
The world now. And Josue Fernando Saucedo, David, I met your channel through the dialogue with Mikel Hanning. Your work is incredible. This is no work. It's me talking to my friends, and I'm not making any money. So no, it's about them. It's about them. Andres C says, amazing work, Mitch.
Oh, thank you.
Thank you all. So we're gonna go because you keep sending things, and I need to give this guy let this guy go back to his life. I don't want his wife knows me, and she can this finger, and I don't want that to happen.
She already sent me a text that said, "Do I need to come save you?" So
there you go. There you go, Lauren. You know me too much. I love you. Anyway, we're leaving here. Thank you so much, Mitch. First,
thank you.
Please don't cut because the wife wants to say hello.
Yeah, I won't.
We're off.
Yeah.
And to you all, thank you so much for being here. Have a nice day. I repeat, wear your mask. Don't be assholes. See you on Wednesday with Mr. in Español, Mr. Álvaro Ortiz and Mr. David Ramirez. Take care of yourself. Have a nice day. Don't be assholes. Wear the mask.